That night, Leah ran like she could outrun death, like the love of her life still had time. "Hold on, Bob. Just a little longer. I'm almost there." She gripped her wedding ring like it was a lifeline. After 57 years together, she still believed she could save him. One more time. She had done it before, with care, with faith, and a stubbornness that baffled doctors. But that night, fate didn't wait. When Leah walked into the room, his body was already cold, and the woman who never let anyone see her cry finally broke. "This time, I couldn't do it, baby." This story isn't about loss, it's about love. The kind almost no one talks about anymore. It's about Leah, a Southern woman who spent 15 years taking care of the man she loved, carrying him, literally, in her arms. It's not a fairy tale kind of love, but it's the kind that endures, that holds on, that turns pain into devotion. This is the story of Leah and Robert, and once you hear it, you might never think about love the same way again. Leah was never one for big dreams. Born and raised in a small southern town in Louisiana, she believed in hard work, faith, and fresh coffee in the morning. But that day, something in her glowed differently. It was 1968, a hot summer in New Orleans, and she was about to marry Robert, a quiet mechanic with kind eyes who listened more than he spoke. Her dress was simple, sewn by her aunt. The reception, her mother's backyard, but no one there cared about fancy things. What filled that place was love. Real love. When Leah walked in, Robert swallowed hard. It was like the world paused just for her. She smiled. He cried. That day, they promised each other everything. In sickness and in health. In joy and in sorrow. But of course, neither of them had any idea what life still had in store. The early years were tough, but full of joy. Leah and Robert moved into a tiny house in Baton Rouge. It wasn't much, but it had a backyard with trees and a shed where Robert spent hours fixing things that didn't even need fixing. Leah taught at a local public school. She always came home exhausted, but with that signature smile of hers. They didn't have a lot. Some nights dinner was just rice, beans, and old bread. But they had each other, and that was enough. Then came the kids, Sarah, Michael, and little Noah. The house turned into a beautiful mess of toys, loud laughter, and the smell of cake in the oven. Robert worked long hours, but he always made time to play with the kids, teach Sarah to ride a bike, or just sit on the porch with Leah, watching the sunset and sharing that kind of silence only true love understands. Neighbors used to say they were old school, and they were. No luxury, no rush, just partnership, respect, and a patience that felt like it came from another time. Of course, it wasn't perfect. They had fights, hard days, late bills, but when one fell, the other held on. When one doubted, the other believed for both. That's what made them special. It wasn't a fairy tale life, it was a real one. And most importantly, they had each other. It was supposed to be a celebration. 35 years of marriage. Choral anniversary. Leah had cooked a simple lunch, but it was made with love. Robert even wore that light blue shirt she loved, the one he only pulled out for special occasions. The kids came. The grandkids too. They laughed, told old stories, made a clumsy toast with juice glasses and awkward jokes. Leah looked at Robert and thought, "We made it. Against everything. We got here." But later that afternoon, while she was doing the dishes and he was resting in his recliner, she heard a loud thud. A glass hit the floor. She turned and saw Robert collapsed, eyes rolled back, his body limp, like his soul had stepped out for a moment. Time froze. The screams, the ambulance, the ER, the waiting room. It all blurred together. The diagnosis, brain aneurysm, severe. But he survived. Only, the Robert Leah knew never fully came back. He lost movement in his legs. His speech slowed. His memory faded in and out. Life shifted. In an instant, Leah became a nurse, a caregiver, a physical therapist, a full-time cook, and somehow, she still stayed his wife, with love, with faith, with a kind of strength she didn't know she had. Most people would have fallen apart, but not Leah. She looked at the fragile man in front of her and said, "If I have to start all over with you, then I will." That's when their second life began. Harder, slower, but somehow even more filled with love. No one ever taught Leah how to take care of a disabled man. She learned the hard way, through trial, through love. Those first few months were the hardest. Robert couldn't adjust to the wheelchair. He grew frustrated, ashamed, quiet. Leah listened in silence, then cried alone in the bathroom at night. That was the only place she let the pain come out. She had to learn how to bathe him, change him, lift him from bed with nothing but her arms and her will. She had to manage wounds, fevers, infections, and the pitiful stares from people who didn't know the full story. The house changed. Their bedroom turned into a mini hospital. Orthopedic mattress, rails, equipment, medicines. But Leah never let it feel sterile. She filled the space with fresh flowers, soft crochet cloths, little touches of warmth. It was still home, just different. Every day she woke at 5 a.m., made coffee like always, touched his forehead gently and whispered, "Another day, my love. We'll get through it together." Robert, even with speech fading, looked at her with eyes that said it all. Gratitude, love, relief. On good days, she wheeled him out to the garden, and they watched the grandkids play. On bad days, she sat beside his bed, held his hand, and said, "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." Outside, she looked tireless. Inside, only God knew. Still, Leah never asked for anything. She just wanted one thing: that Robert never felt like a burden, and he never was. He was the love of her life, and she was his guardian angel. Not every day was pain. In fact, what kept Leah going were the good days, even if they were small, subtle, almost invisible to anyone else. Like the time Robert managed to lift a spoon on his own. It took 3 minutes. He spilled most of it. But when he finally got it to his mouth, Leah clapped like he'd won a marathon. And to her, he had. Or the day he suddenly remembered their youngest granddaughter's name, after weeks of confusion. Leah quietly wiped a tear and acted like it was no big deal. But inside, her heart was screaming with joy. Those tiny victories were everything. A smile from him, a fever-free day, a look that said, "Thank you," without a word. That's what kept her standing. She started building little rituals, tea and cookies in the late afternoon, soft classical music during naps, bedtime prayers with her hands wrapped around his. One day, a doctor mentioned Robert was living longer than expected, and Leah answered without blinking, "That's because I won't let him go. Not yet." The kids saw it all. They were grateful, but also worried. They tried convincing her to get help, take breaks. But she always replied, "I don't do this out of duty. I do it out of love." In her rare quiet moments, she'd sit on the porch, take a deep breath and whisper, "God, give me strength for one more day." And he did. Because even tired, Leah still saw beauty in what she did. She still saw purpose. She still saw life. And that was more than most people ever find. Time went on, and with it, the weight. Robert's condition slowly worsened. Infections became more frequent, his skin more fragile. He barely spoke now. Sometimes he just blinked slowly to say, "Yes." Leah started noticing her own body giving in. Her back hurt constantly. Her arms, once strong, shook when lifting him from the chair. But she said nothing, just smiled, and kept going. The routine grew heavier. Pills, tubes, warm baths, soft food in tiny bites. Time felt like an endless loop between hospital, home, and prayer. Still, Leah never complained. But at night, lying beside him, she stared at the ceiling and whispered, "How long, Lord?" It wasn't despair. It was exhaustion. The kind of tired that doesn't go away with sleep or rest. It was soul tired. The kids insisted, "Mom, let us help. Take a break. Go to church. visit Aunt Marie in Houston. But she'd smile and answer gently, "Who's going to care for him like I do?" No one argued, because they knew her love wasn't ordinary. It had roots, it had scars, it endured. One night, Robert had trouble breathing, back to the hospital again. And there was Leah, right by his side. A young nurse asked, "Are you family?" And with tears in her eyes, Leah replied, "I'm more than that. I'm his life." And she was. Robert kept breathing because Leah was there. And Leah kept living, because someone still needed her. It was a cold October night. Robert had a fever, was sweating, and his breathing was shallow. Leah knew exactly what that meant. Another hospital visit, another scare. She grabbed her bag, called the ambulance, and within 20 minutes, they were at the ER. She sat beside him in observation, holding his hand like always. But something felt different. Robert seemed farther away, his eyes dull, his skin pale. Even without words, Leah could feel it. He was tired. So tired. A few hours later, a nurse gently suggested, "Mrs. Leah, go home, take a shower, eat something. You've been here for hours." She hesitated, looked at him, almost refused. But Robert was sleeping peacefully, so she agreed. At home, everything felt unusually quiet. She took off her shoes slowly, made weak coffee, got in the shower. As the water ran down her face, she kept repeating, "He'll pull through, just like he always does." But time ran out. Still wrapped in a towel, she heard the front door open. It was Sarah, her daughter, red eyes, heavy breathing. Leah didn't need words. She just knew. But still, she whispered, "What?" Sarah stepped closer. "Mom, he's gone." Leah froze, then stood up quickly, as if she could still stop it. "I know what he needs. Take me to him." On the way back to the hospital, she spoke with stubborn hope. "We've done this before. I'll get there, look into his eyes, and he'll come back." But something in the silence of that car said otherwise. This time, it was the end. She just wasn't ready to believe it. When they got to the hospital, Leah jumped out of the car before it even stopped. She ran through the hallways she knew like the back of her hand. The lights felt colder, the sounds more distant. She entered the room with her chest tight, but still full of hope. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe he was just in a deep sleep. He'd come back before, so many times, but not tonight. His body lay still under a white sheet. Silence, cold, emptiness. Leah froze for a few seconds, then slowly pulled the sheet back, revealing his face. No, honey. Talk to me." She touched his cheek, kissed his cold forehead. Nothing. Her world collapsed right there. She buried her face in his chest and cried, not loudly, but in a way that tore her from the inside. Sarah walked in moments later. She found her mother sitting beside the bed, holding his hand between hers, trying to warm him back to life. Leah looked up, her eyes red and heavy. "This time, I couldn't do it, sweetheart." It was the first time Sarah saw her mother broken, fragile, human. Leah didn't scream, she didn't panic, she just wept, slowly, like someone who knows she lost something that can never be replaced. Later, alone in the hospital chapel, she whispered a short prayer. "Thank you, God, for letting me love him that much." And that was it, the end of a life together, but the beginning of a longing she would carry forever. The funeral was simple, just how Robert would have wanted it. Flowers from their backyard, soft music, the grandkids sharing funny stories about Grandpa. But Leah sat quietly. She stayed on the same bench the whole time, staring at the casket like she was still waiting for him to wake up, smile, and say, "Just another scare, sweetheart." But he didn't wake up. When everyone else had left, she stayed a bit longer. She gently ran her hand over the casket and whispered, "Thank you for letting me love you until the very end." The days after were quiet, but full of memories. His scent still lingered on the pillows. His favorite mug was still in the sink. The wheelchair was still parked next to the bed. But the silence, that hurt the most. She caught herself checking the clock when it was time for his medicine. She'd walk to the bedroom without realizing. She'd start sentences and stop halfway, like she was still talking to him. One day, Sarah found her sitting on the porch, staring at the sky, eyes glistening. "You okay, Mom?" And Leah gave a faint smile. "I'm not, but I will be. Because if I can make it through today, that's one day closer to seeing him again." That sentence stayed with Sarah for weeks. Leah didn't turn bitter. She didn't lose her faith, but she was different, like someone living with half a heart somewhere else. And still, she kept going, planting flowers, giving advice, sending the grandkids good morning texts. Because that's who Leah was. She didn't have superpowers, but she had a love no one could break. And that last time, she couldn't do it. But maybe that too was love.